We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrificed?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hi, Parth.
Hey, Trent.
You're looking well.
You're looking well as well.
We have a film podcast.
We do. I just sneezed and you told me never to do that again.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll edit it out, but if you do, he sneezed twice. I said it was disgusting. The joke being that it's perfectly natural, babe. That's just your body doing its thing. But speaking of your body doing its thing.
There we go.
See? We're getting better at this. What have you been eating?
Well, Trent, I was over at friend of the show, Sophia Alexis's house. And
From the Gone Girl discussion.
From the Gone Girl discussion. And the two of us were going to have breakfast together. And you recently were over at her house for her birthday party. And the day after, we had bagels and we made egg and bacon and whatnot.
That was fun. I slept on an air mattress with a dude named Shane.
Yeah, you're one of Shane's boys now.
Yep.
For that breakfast, as you may remember, we all went out to go purchase the items that needed to be cooked. And one of those items was bacon, one of those items was eggs. And because of the overflow of supplies, the last few times Sophia and I have had breakfast together, it's been eggs and bacon. And this morning I was like, I don't want eggs and bacon. So instead Sophia said, well, we have Greek yogurt. And I was like, do you have honey and granola? And she said yes. And so that's what I had.
That sounds good. Yeah, my dad complimented our maturity for just going to buy the bagels from the good bagel shop, and then instead of getting bacon, egg, and cheeses from the bagel shop, making the second stop at the grocery store to get
make our own.
As you're describing, like a week's worth of bacon, egg, and cheeses for the price of a day's worth of bacon, egg, and cheeses.
Yeah,
and it was fun hanging around the kitchen and prepping our own stuff. It sort of added to it, I think.
Yeah,
and then it's hot as people come up the stairs.
And we made pancakes, I believe.
I was long gone by the time pancakes were being served.
Oh, wait, no, we did. That was just me and Sophia. Sorry. That's just a thing very good friends do together. But something we've done together is eat together. But I want to know what you ate on your own.
So what I've got over here, I've left some for visual display. Rice cake with peanut butter and cinnamon. And then you saw me nibbling on this smoothie. Man, it's so thick, I've got to eat it with a spoon. Mm-hmm. It sounds gross, but I'm just doing my thing.
That's like me sneezing.
Yeah, exactly. That's nature. Cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film, and hopefully you have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture.
This week we've got editor Taylor Levy. He's edited other films, like other than our film for today, A Different Man. He's edited different films, such as Bodies, 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 and The Good Mother. Bodies, 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 we covered on this show.
We sure did. We had composer Disasterpiece with us to speak about it. But Taylor Levy, this is part 2 of our interview, of our Different Man interview. And Trent, dare I say, even better than part 1?
It's different and sure, better. Yeah, if you left last week thinking, where's the second half of the interview? This episode's for you. Because here it is. It's different because Different Man compared to other weeks where we just released the same episode twice and see if anyone notices.
Weeks that we've done that.
No one has noticed so far. But this week, part 2 is different than part 1. So looking forward to that. Enjoy.
Yeah. Cue the interview.
In the workplace, like PowerPoint / commercial, I was like laughing knowing that I was gonna interview the editor soon. Did you also edit that?
Yes, yeah. That is, I'm very proud of that sequence.
mainly because there's a page peel wipe that starts that thing, and I remember putting that in my assembly, and I was like, this is pretty funny. And then we had been editing for months, and I checked in with Aaron. I was like, Aaron, do you notice that I'm doing this here? And he was like, yeah, it's great. So it stayed in, and I never thought, you open those editing programs when you're young and you see all the canned transitions, and you're like, what am I going to use any of this stuff for, other than maybe like some more documentary style stuff? But in like a narrative feature, you're never like thinking you might deploy some of these 3D transitions. So yes, I did cut that whole thing and was able to use that. And I think there's some of the funniest edits are in that sequence too. I also was telling myself while I cut it, I was like, cut this, for lack of a better word, kind of bad.
Yeah.
Make it a little bit awkward. There's like one part of it, I'm pretty sure, where there's like 5 cuts where there should be 0, and I'm just like cutting in and cutting out and like putting the focus on this other guy who is so inconsequential. But people seem to laugh at it, so I think it worked. But yeah, that was kind of my thinking there.
It's awesome. Are there any scenes that were restructured from what they were on the page or as shot? And are there any deleted scenes that either became, they were unnecessary once you were putting together the movie?
Yeah, there are a few deleted scenes, a few things we just lifted out. I know that A24 is working on a Blu-ray, and they have asked for deleted scenes, so you might get to see those eventually. One of them we liked a lot, but it kind of landed in that slightly broader territory where one of the kind of more side doctor characters during the kind of experimental procedure had like a longer scene discussing side effects he was having from taking the medicine. And the scene was shot in a really crazy way. One of the wildest ways I've seen a scene covered. And it was like in coverage, but the camera was like doing crazy stuff. And we both kind of loved it, but like it became an easy thing to point to where you're like, wow, there's this other guy doing a lot of very broad talking in the scene towards Edward. We had to scale that back significantly. So yeah, that scene had to go. And then, yeah, there's like an extended scene in the pizzeria, which might be included in the Blu-ray. But in terms of like repurposing scenes, not so much. Like the script was really sound. One scene, there were scenes that just took a while to calibrate, but nothing that needed to be like repurposed, I think. Racking my brain trying to remember, but I don't think so. I think a lot about the scene after he auditions for the play as Guy and he has the mask and then they're in the bar. That was a scene that we worked on for a bit, thinning out some dialogue, kind of refine the interaction between the two of them. Yeah. And then, another scene that we worked on for a while is another bar scene, when Oswald comes into the bar and he's like with his real estate mates and it's like spinning around them. That scene took a while for us to like kind of land on its final form. But nothing that like was fully repurposed. Like I think there's like except for a few things, everything like the core of everything as it was needed to be stayed in the movie, even if it got thinned down to like a shorter, more concise version of itself.
Talking about Oswald, I was like shocked when I watched the movie how late into the movie he actually arrives and then how much of an impact he has. I think he's only in it for like 45 minutes. Can you talk about crafting his introduction? Because Trent and I were talking before you joined, but we were like, it's crazy that Adam Pearson wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the math on how long he's in the movie. He weights it so greatly once he comes in that like he feels so pivotal. But yeah, you spend a while before he gets there. And what's really fun is like some people, unknowingly saw the movie at like Sundance and stuff, but like, was that Adam in the first part of the movie? Like people didn't know it was makeup and they were unsure, like, is that him and then Sebastian? And like didn't realize like it was makeup and Sebastian the whole time. But yeah, just by design in the script, just a really bold idea where it's like, we're going to bring this guy in at this stage where you think you might know what this movie is about, what it's doing. And I think that's the brilliance of the second half of the film is like, as soon as you think you might know what the film's after, it finds a way to switch gears. And Oswald being the biggest gear shift there, you think he's always getting the girl. He's going down the path of being this new guy, but it's like, oh no, this guy's going to come in and usurp all this confidence in a really crazy way. So yeah, no, Adam is, he was in Train for Life, Aaron's other film, and Aaron knew exactly what he was capable of, and he delivered everything that the movie needed and more in a lot of ways. Yeah.
So, is your involvement in the opening credits, which I thought were really effective, is that any different, or you're just being handed stuff over from like the visual effects people? Is that a little later in the game or something?
Well, it's funny. I remember building that sequence because, as I mentioned, I don't like to work from home, but I had gotten really sick with COVID around the time that like I was finishing my assembly edit on the movie right before we started the director's cut, and I was like, I had this bin of footage of like all the lab stuff, and Aaron kept saying like he was maybe going to shoot more of it because he wanted more of it, and that was never possible. So I just kind of like sat on it and I was like, what am I going to do with this stuff? And then one day I just took the theme and the footage we had and just kind of built a little sequence out of it. And that sequence is really similar as you see it to what I built that day. And the relationship to the music is, you know, very similar. I remember seeing the blinking dots and I was like, oh, this could be a cool first image. And then the scan, you know, the face scan that comes down is kind of like a cool way to get into all of this. And then all of this weird science-y stuff. And then I can't remember, I don't think we put titles over that picture for a long time. Aaron had a title designer that he had worked with before, I think pretty late in the picture locking game, where we finally like, we'll do titles over picture here. But it was also kind of a debate, like, because I think it's only Sebastian, Renata, and Adam in the top credits, which is kind of rare. So we had to do some, you know, working to get the approval to like just do the three of them and the main title, and then do everything else at the end of the movie. But once we got the clear for that, I feel bad because I can't remember the title designer's name, but he made, you know, like a book of designs, and then the one that's in the movie was one of them. And I think we all kind of gravitated towards that one pretty quickly. And, you know, just placed it, you know, nicely with the music. And a lot of that happened kind of after picture lock.
Talking about specific scenes, can you talk about the scene where Edward and Ingrid are at, I guess it's the pizza place, and it's raining outside and there's extras in the background? Because I think that's some of the best background work I've seen in a while.
Yeah, like, you know, kudos to the production team. Like, I don't know what goes into that. I just get the scene and I'm just like, what is, like, there's so much going on out there. And like, you do the best you can with the resources you have, of course. And I feel like Aaron would probably say that there were some things he wanted differently out of what was going on out there. I think that I'm pretty sure that the guy who taps on the window is like a crew member. I think he's like second AD or something like that, who they were just like, can you do this? But yeah, I remember seeing the scene and seeing the way they were both eating. That was the first thing that struck me. It's like he's eating pizza, fork, and knife, and she is like an animal eating hers. And yeah, people are just going by and they pull your attention in a really curious way, right? It's like, am I supposed to be noticing these people? But that's, I think, a thing the movie's doing the whole time. It's like constantly making you aware of the world in which the characters exist. So it's just nice texture.
What's the first scene that comes to mind when you think of a scene that took a while to get right?
As I mentioned, that scene in the bar took a while. Spinning the tabletop scene, you know, it's just the coverage had us kind of limited. And when you're doing that kind of spinning camera thing, you kind of get stuck sometimes where you're like, you have nowhere to cut because it's like always doing the same thing. So getting that one in there was tough. You know, the scene when Ingrid first comes into the apartment was a tough scene to like fully calibrate. You know, that was more of a figuring out, you know, exact performance stuff. And also, yeah, that one I mentioned also when after the show, when they're in the bar and they're kind of building their flirtatious energy, Ingrid and Guy, because that scene had a lot of performance. That was one scene that did have like a lot of performance variation. Like they played it dry, but they also played it very flirtatious, like very much like we know were into each other sort of thing. So there's like dialing in what version of that was going to work best. That took a little bit of time too.
Can you talk about the scene where Edward's face is, I guess, falling off and then he peels his face off? I don't know how else better to say that, because it's like simply put together, but in like that's a compliment because it's very clean.
Yeah, I didn't want to obscure too much. Like, I wanted to see the man's face come off, right? You don't want to do too much. And if I can recall, we only had one chance at it because, you know, putting that back on was going to be hours of makeup. And, you know, it was a whole thing that we didn't have a lot of time for. So we ran 2 cameras on it. You know, we have the close-up angle, and then we have the one that's shooting into the window, which is kind of the more like very beautiful shot. You know, if you look at that shot, there's a lot of faces. There's his face under the face. There's the face coming off. He also has the mask on his, the mask from the procedure on his thigh, like resting there. So the image is really beautiful, but you also don't get the body horror from that image as much. So it's about splitting the difference of like, when do we want to go in and feel the face coming off, and when do we want to maybe obscure it for this beautiful shot that is full of emotion but isn't as like gory as the other ones are. And then also working with Umberto to dial in that music so that it's just the right amount. Like, it's not too aggressive in the music, I don't think there. But yeah, I think we only had one chance. And so, again, Sebastian delivers, Mike delivers. The makeup was incredible. The way it came off looked great. It needed very little touching up in the end. And so, yeah, when you get, you know, great prosthetics and great acting and some great shots, you don't want to cut too much. You don't want to feel like you're covering anything up.
Do you know how long the shooting schedule was?
I want to say 24 days, around there, if not exactly that.
Cool. We like to ask if there's like a major like sort of lesson or like takeaway from this project that you think could be valuable on future projects.
Good question. I think for me, what I learned on this movie was to trust my instincts, because, you know, the movie is bold. It's not... I knew when we were making it that I was loving what we were doing. I thought it was funny. I thought Sebastian and Adam and Marathe were all great in it. I thought it looked good. I liked the music, but you don't know if everyone's going to agree with that until the movie goes out into the world. It taught me that my initial instinct on everything that came in was spot on, that I saw the things the way that they eventually ended up being seen by more or less everybody. And that's a great lesson to learn, I think, for an editor. It's like you can second guess a lot and go in and toil with things endlessly, or be afraid to maybe take a risk. But usually, or maybe not usually, but sometimes it's the right thing to do is to take a leap of faith. Yeah.
Trent, are we ready to move out of different man talk?
Yeah, I think we're ready.
So just briefly, could you talk about editing Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? Because that's a movie Trent and I both enjoy.
Whenever our group of friends hangs out, we often find ourselves playing Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. The fun game, you know, from the movie.
That's so funny. Yeah, I had played Mafia, which is very similar before. And so when I got the script, I was like, oh, I'm so into this because I love this game. So I got it right away. I was like, this is super fun. Editing on that movie was a blast. Like, again, great performances, and especially from Pete and Rachel, so much improv, so much material to work through.
Making a podcast is hard.
Yeah, so that, I feel like that line was scripted, but so much of what she said is so funny. I think the Libra thing that she does in the kitchen is just all her, and I remember getting all that stuff and thinking, I think this movie might be a lot funnier than we were all prepared for it to be. Even the end of the movie, I didn't think would play like such a joke as it does, but I think that's what makes it so good. And then also once I saw Pete doing the sword stuff, I'm like, oh my God, he's so goofy. Yeah, that movie was more tricky in terms of calibrating the line between maintaining it being somewhat of a horror movie thriller, but using what the goods that we got from, the cast. And, the absurd circumstance which they're in. Like, that was always my favorite part of the movie. Even on the page was like, oh, these kids who like are friends, but like, why are we friends with anyone sometimes? Like, and that movie puts that on display in a pretty fun way, I think.
I was wondering, is there a scene in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies that you remember posing a unique challenge or any sort of restructuring you could talk about from that movie?
I would probably say like the first couple minutes of the movie were tricky to like get them up the mountain. Like, you wanted to get them up there and in the house pretty quick, but there was like some extra stuff at the top that maybe we didn't need. So like thinning all of that out and kind of figuring out how to like get us into the story as quick as possible was probably the trickiest part, And then the ending as well, the final scene between Amanda and Maria and the like finding the video and like executing the video. Of course, that's like a kind of like a high wire thing to do where they're finding this video. And I take like technology in the movies I work on seriously. I want them to be super as accurate to like our usage as possible. So, just needed to get that, as right as we could.
Do the movies you edit, are they all sort of East Coast based, or can you sort of do it remotely?
I could do anything remotely. I think due to the tax incentives that we have in New York, a lot of productions just come here, even if they don't shoot here. I've done multiple projects that have shot like in New Orleans, some in Canada, but they come to New York because we offer a good tax incentive for them to do post here. And so smaller budget movies want that extra kick in the budget to help them get over the finish line. So, I think that's why you see a lot of movies post in New York. And so those movies came this way because of that. Yeah.
Is there anything you're working on now that you're at liberty to talk about?
Yeah, well, I just finished another movie with Killer Films, who had produced A Different Man. So earlier in my career, after I'd done a little bit of feature editing, I decided to work on an installation art exhibit piece with this visual artist. Her name was Rachel Rhodes. And we got along so well, and she was like, I want to make features one day. And I think that was in 2019 we did that. So, 5-6 years pass and she has a script. She gets, Killer on board and gets some actors on board. And that was what we got to do last year. So we just finished the mix on that movie like a week ago. So that movie is all done up. I'm sure it'll kind of go out for the festivals, see where it gets in, where it can premiere. Someone will need to buy it at some point and put it out there. But I do think the movie is really great. More dramatic than the last couple of things I've done. It is a drama about motherhood and kind of about postpartum depression and writer's block and a few other things. And it takes place over one day where these two women kind of cross paths and kind of have an effect on each other's lives. And it stars Alicia Vikander and Victoria Pedretti, who are both amazing actors and did amazing stuff in the movie. And yeah, I'm very excited for that movie to come out. I'm very proud of it.
Trent, is it Big Kahuna time?
Yeah, one of us is about to drop the Big Kahuna final question. The only question is, who's it going to be?
I think I'll do it. So the Big Kahuna final question is just, what is the last great movie you watched? And it can be a rewatch or a first-time watch, but it can't just be good. It has to be great.
Oh, well, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have a sling on from surgery.
Oh, no.
We couldn't tell.
Yeah, we could not tell.
Yeah, it's blending in. So I'm at home watching movies and nonsense. The other day, I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, which of course is a great movie, but more recently than that, yesterday I watched one of my favorite movies of all time, School of Rock.
It's a big blind spot for me.
Oh, it's really good.
To see it.
It's Richard Linklater is obviously an incredible filmmaker, and he has touched in so many flavors of film and is so good. And if you're a fan of White Lotus, Mike White, who is the creator of that show, he's in it, of course. And he wrote the movie. And like, you know, if you have any fondness for rock music and the spirit of rock music, it is just like ringing that bell over and over again, the power of rock and roll. And the songs in the movie are all great, and the soundtrack of the movie is great. So if you're into any of those things, and if you're into Jack Black, I recommend it so highly.
I saw it for the first time as an adult man, and it struck me to my very core. But thank you so much to Taylor Levy. He's the editor behind such movies like The Good Mother, Bodies, 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 and our film for this week, Aaron Shinberg's A Different Man. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a blast.
What an interview, Trent.
What an interview. Parth, I had the thought the other day that during the outros, since we're sort of just like treading water, maybe a cool thing to do could be to say where the movie is available, like,
Wow.
for streaming. Is that crazy? And I think in this case, it's available on Max.
It is available on, and that's actually where I saw it.
That's where I saw it too.
Because this movie was playing the same week as another Sebastian Stan movie, The Apprentice, and I had to choose between which Sebastian Stan movie I was going to watch, and I watched The Apprentice, I think, because the timing worked out more.
Because you wanted to be upset for 2 hours while you
Yeah, and I was like, this guy will never be president again. Never.
yeah, that was like...
Hail King Trump, but, you know.
Yeah, Hail King Trump. Cut to 2010. Me and my family are in the basement watching Celebrity Apprentice, hosted by Donald Trump. Perfectly harmless entertainment. No idea what we have in store down the line. And it cuts in the middle of the voting off or the you're fired scene to Barack Obama announcing the assassination.
Wow, 2011 then.
The death of Osama bin Laden. And just thinking about that moment, it's like, who would have thought Donald Trump would be our...
Well, that's why he ran. He was pissed off that he was cut off.
And now he's our evil king.
Our really cool, gracious king, Trent.
But I guess when we talk about, say, next week's movie, we won't... Well, I guess we can say what that is.
Yeah, no. Next week, we had the pleasure of talking with Black Bag production designer Philip Messina.
Yeah, so I guess when we talk about that next week, we can be like, go see Black Bag in theaters.
Well, we can say that, yeah, right now we can say, go see it in theaters. It's still playing.
Yeah, and Parth and I both really enjoyed it. I fell asleep the first time, then I went the second time, and I was like, I really enjoyed that. I'm ready to conduct the interview. And then we're conducting the interview, and Parth starts discussing a scene, and I was like, I think I fell asleep the second time too, because I don't remember.
I think it's worth pointing out, though, that Trent falling asleep during a movie is kind of has no...
Oh, it has no bearing on Black Bag.
Yeah.
I enjoyed what I saw, and in a mysterious way, convinced myself I didn't fall asleep. But then Parth started talking about a scene with an explosion, and I was like, I would have remembered that. But production designer Philip Messina, we had a great conversation. Tune in next week.
Yeah, can't wait to hear it.
Parth, he had the conversation, and even he can't wait to hear it.
Well, it is sometimes... I feel like sometimes recording the interviews is an out-of-body experience because you're too busy asking all the questions and trying to make it all make sense, and then making sure that the recordings are all going right and whatnot. And that sometimes when I'm like editing the interviews, I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting.
My experience, you're so right, because my experience while doing the interviews is either, thank God, thank God, thank God, it's not my turn to ask a question, I'm just going to chill here. And then you ask a question, and then I go, fuck, 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 fuck. I have to think of a question, and then I just find one and then repeat the question over and over again in my head until the person sort of stops talking, and then I pop it. So then I repeat that for like an hour.
Yeah. But what repeats every week is our show, which you can listen to on Sundays.
Sunday at 5 a.m.
on every podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, etc. And if you want to be updated on when these things are coming out, you can go head over to Twitter and Instagram.
Head over.
Just head on over.
Find us on the web, wherever you're looking stuff up.
You can look up Parth Marathe and Trent Elgair, and you'll find us on a variety of platforms.
You can look up Parth Marathe home address, and you're going to
It'll
find...
probably show up.
You're
I
going
have
to
to be
find a
honest.
plethora of interesting information. What you do with that information, it ain't on me.
Yeah. And you, Trent, you could ask me for my address. Ask me for my address.
Parth, where are you living at? Where you at?
Black bag.
I wish I had seen Black Bag during our Challengers special when you asked me about... Parth was like, Trent, do you ever have any, like, weird or funny or disgusting stories from, like,
I
being
said
on
funny
dating
stories.
apps? And I could, because it was Valentine's Day, and I wish I could have just said Black Bag.
Yeah.
And whenever you're gonna regret us covering this movie, because now if you ever text me and you're like, oh, Trent, we need to record, I can just be like, Black Bag. And then just not respond for like 12 hours. So it's gonna bite you. But we'll see you and Philip Messina next week.
Next week, and thank you to Taylor Levy.
Thank you to Taylor Levy.
Bye.
That was fun. Bye bye.